Mayday, no thrust, losing power, unable to lift. Just imagine hearing those words.
Doing.
They were transmitted from Air India Flight 171, just seconds after it left the runway in Ahmedabad, India, back on June 12, 2025, a flight heading for London Gatwick.
That tragically ended almost the moment it started.
Welcome to the deep dive. Now, you've shared a whole load of sources with us, news reports, expert analysis, witness accounts, all looking into this awful crash of Air India Flight 171.
And our goal today is really to unpack all that material together with you. We'll pull up the key facts, try to understand how the tragedy unfolded in those critical moments,
Right.
explore the potential causes investigators are looking at based purely on these sources, and consider the wider impact.
Yeah, on the industry, on public trust, it's about getting you up to speed quickly but thoroughly using the material you gave us.
Okay, so where do we start? The aircraft itself seems important.
Definitely. The sources all identify it as a Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner, and, well, that immediately jumps out, doesn't it?
It really does. Your material points out this is the first fatal crash for this particular Dreamliner model since it actually entered service, which was way back in 2011.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, that statistic alone kind of grabs your attention, especially with, all the recent scrutiny Boeing has faced. This specific plane, it was 12 years old. Not brand new, but certainly not ancient either.
Okay, so a modern, widely used plane with the previously perfect safety record for this model.
Yeah.
Let's try and piece together those first few moments, those terrifying moments. It happened so fast.
Incredibly fast. So flight AI-171 takes off from Ahmedabad, runway 23, 1:39 p.m. local time, according to the sole survivor's account in your sources.
Yeah.
Within 5 to 10 seconds, he felt something was wrong.
He described it really vividly, didn't he? Said it felt like the plane was stuck in the air and the lights inside started flickering almost straight away.
And right around the same time he's feeling that, the pilots are sending out that incredibly urgent Mayday call. The sources really hammer this home. Total loss of thrust, unable to climb.
That's the absolute core of it, isn't it? The immediate mystery.
Precisely. And after that call, nothing. Air traffic control couldn't raise them. Your sources say the pilots were just fighting the controls for about 17 seconds. A tense 17 seconds.
It's fighting a losing battle.
Seems that way. The whole time it was airborne from liftoff to impact was maybe 30 seconds total.
30 seconds. Just hard to fathom. And the crash site wasn't far from the airport.
No, about 1.5 miles past the end of the runway. It came down in a really densely populated area, hitting buildings, a doctor's hostel, some homes.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, and the descriptions say it just erupted into flames immediately. Massive destruction on the ground.
And the human cost. It's staggering. On the plane itself, 242 people on board, 230 passengers, 12 crew. Only one survived.
Meaning 241 confirmed fatalities just from the aircraft?
But it didn't stop there, did it? The impact on the ground.
No, it was devastating there, too. Your sources report more fatalities on the ground, pushing the total death toll over 290.
Unbelievable.
And the medical college canteen, it seems, was hit badly. Around 50 injured. And tragically, at least 5 medical students were killed there.
Just awful.
Yeah.
And the passenger list shows how global this tragedy was.
Yeah, a real mix. 169 Indian nationals, 53 British, 7 Portuguese, 1 Canadian. The sources also mentioned some names. Former Gujarat Chief Minister Vijay Rupani.
Right, I saw that.
British families like the Nana Bawas, Dr. Joshi's family. Hearing those names, it really brings home the personal loss behind the numbers.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Now, in the midst of all this darkness, there's this one incredible story. The sources focus on the sole survivor.
Yes. Vishwash Kumar Ramesh. A 40-year-old British father. His survival is described as miraculous, and his seat location seems key.
He was in 11A.
That's right, 11A, right next to an emergency exit.
And his account, it's harrowing, but it gives us such a unique perspective on those last seconds.
It does. He mentioned hearing a loud noise, feeling the impact, described it like the plane just rammed into some establishment. He then realized his part of the plane was somehow mostly intact and on the ground near an opening.
And he managed to get out?
He pushed through it, yeah.
Yeah.
Described it as walking out of the rubble. But the scene, horrific. He talked about seeing people dying in front of my eyes.
Oh, my goodness.
Even disoriented, injured, impact injuries, they called them. He somehow got to an ambulance. Doctors later said he was out of danger, physically at least.
The emotional toll must be immense. That video call to his father?
Right, almost immediately after, saying, I don't know how I am alive.
Yeah.
His brother, Nayan, talked about that call and the absolute heartbreak that their other brother, Ajay, who was also on the flight, He didn't make it.
It's devastating.
And it leads to this stark statistic in the material. Air India 171 is now classed as the deadliest aviation disaster to have a sole survivor. Yeah, one of your sources mentions a Wikipedia list, apparently, highlighting just how incredibly rare this is, especially in crashes with so many on board. Puts his survival in a truly unique, almost unbelievable context.
Extraordinary is the only word.
Okay,
So let's shift gears a bit, from the human story to the technical side. How do investigators even start figuring out why this happened? What are the tools, the initial theories based on the material you gave us?
well, the absolute cornerstone right now is finding and analyzing the black boxes. You've got two main parts.
The voice recorder and the data recorder.
Exactly. The cockpit voice recorder, the CVR that captures everything said in the cockpit, pilot talk, alarms, engine sounds, everything.
And the FDR, the flight data recorder.
That's like the plane's diary. It logs hundreds of different things: altitude, airspeed, engine thrust levels, flap positions, control inputs, you name it. A second-by-second account of what the aircraft is doing.
So those are critical.
Absolutely critical. Your sources call them invaluable pieces of information. Experts expect that once they get those and decode them, they should get a very clear picture, very quickly, of the plane's mechanical state and what the pilots were dealing with. The data doesn't lie about performance.
And it's not just Indian investigators, right? It's an international effort.
Correct. Standard practice for major incidents like this involving international flights manufacturers. Indian authorities are working with teams from the U.S., the NTSB, and the UK's AAIB. It shows how seriously this is being taken.
Okay, so while they wait for the black boxes, what are the main theories floating around based on the expert opinions and the sources?
Well, based on that Mayday call,
No thrust, losing power.
the most obvious starting point is a loss of thrust, possibly a simultaneous failure of both engines.
Which the sources say is very rare.
Extremely rare, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're looking at why that might happen, investigators would have to consider things like contaminated fuel, maybe, or some issue clogging the fuel system affecting both engines.
But didn't one expert mention they couldn't see obvious signs in early footage?
That's right. An ex-pilot named Marco Chan, mentioned in your material, reportedly said he didn't see immediate evidence of engine failure in the initial videos, which just highlights, how complex this is going to be. They need the hard data.
What about backup systems, like the RAT, the ram air turbine?
Oh, yeah, they'll look at everything. The status of the RAT, which provides emergency power, will definitely be part of the review. An analyst quoted, John Grioch, pointed out that the way the plane seemed uncontrollable suggests, well, his words were, something was going on in the controls of that aircraft.
So engine failure might have caused control issues, or maybe it was something else affecting controls and possibly engines.
Exactly. That's what the black boxes should help untangle. Did the engines fail, leading to loss of control? Or did a control problem contribute to the situation?
Okay, so engine failure is theory one. What else is being discussed in the material?
Another area getting attention is the aircraft's configuration for takeoff, specifically the flaps.
Right, the things on the wings that extend for takeoff and landing.
Precisely. They generate extra lift at lower speeds, which is absolutely vital for a heavy jet, fully loaded, taking off, especially in hot weather.
And Ahmedabad was hot that day, you said. Almost 40 Celsius?
Yeah, around 40 degrees Celsius. Hot and high conditions make correct flap settings even more critical to get airborne safely.
So the thinking is maybe the flaps weren't set right.
It's speculation at this stage, but yes, the sources mention that possibility. Now, a modern plane like the 787 has warning systems for incorrect flap settings.
But things can still go wrong. Human error, maybe?
It's always a possibility investigators have to consider. That same ex-pilot, Marco Chan, reportedly called it highly unusual for experienced crews, but acknowledged it could point to potential human error if flaps aren't set correctly. Again, the FDR data on flap position will be definitive here.
Okay, what about external factors? The sources mention birds.
Yes, Ahmedabad Airport is apparently notorious for birds. The statistics cited are pretty stark: 462 bird strikes in that region over 5 years, mostly at Ahmedabad Airport itself.
And strikes were increasing there.
A 35% jump in Ahmedabad strikes in 2022-23, according to the material. Now, a serious bird strike can definitely damage an engine, cause power loss.
But could it take out both engines right at takeoff?
The sources suggest that's rare. It's rarely catastrophic unless it affects both engines. But given when the power loss happened immediately after liftoff, very low altitude, a bird strike absolutely has to be investigated. They'll be looking for physical evidence on the engines, the wreckage.
It just underscores that point made in the sources, doesn't it? The moments after takeoff can be the most challenging in aviation.
Absolutely. You have experienced pilots Captain Saab Harwal with over 8,200 hours, First Officer Kundar with 1,100, and yet they couldn't avert disaster in those few seconds. It's a reminder that, as one source puts it, errors or unexpected events can happen at any time and people are only human.
And inevitably, this brings Boeing back into the spotlight.
Yeah, the sources frame it as fresh scrutiny on crisis-hit Boeing, linking it to that recent wave of fatal accidents and safety concerns.
Boeing's response.
Pretty standard initial response. Working to gather more information, offering full support to the investigation. GE Aerospace, the engine maker, is also sending a team. It's all hands on deck now.
And the impact on public trust must be significant.
Huge. The scale of this, 290 plus dead, that incredible sole survivor story, it just magnifies public attention and, naturally, concern about flying safety.
Which makes the investigation even more crucial. It needs to be thorough, transparent.
Absolutely. Relying on international experts, the hard technical data that's key to understanding what happened and, importantly, restoring confidence.
Air India's response is also noted in the sources.
Yes, the CEO expressing deep sorrow, focusing on supporting the families. Tata Group, the owner, announced significant compensation, 1 crore per family, which is quite substantial, and helping the damaged medical college, too.
And we saw high-level reactions globally.
We did. The King, UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, Indian PM Narendra Modi, all expressing shock and condolences. PM Modi actually visited the crash site and the survivor in hospital, which really shows the national impact.
It's important, though, amidst all this, to remember the context provided by some sources, like the pilot calling the 787 a phenomenal aeroplane.
Right. It's not about instantly blaming the machine, it's acknowledging complexity. As that source said, errors, mistakes can happen, and the goal for manufacturers like Boeing is always to learn even from tragedy and iron out any errors.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive based on the material you shared, we've looked at the terrifyingly rapid crash of Air India 171, the human stories, especially that of the lone survivor, and the different potential causes investigators are now digging into. Engine failure, flaps, birds, lots of possibilities.
And now, really, the world waits for the black box data, for the official investigation findings. That information isn't just about this one flight. It's vital for improving safety across the entire industry.
It really makes you think. This deep dive shows how, in just a few critical seconds after takeoff, you have this complex mix: advanced technology, human decisions, the environment, all coming together with potentially catastrophic results. As the investigation uncovers the facts, what does this balance, this sometimes fragile balance between technology, procedure, and the human element, tell us about the future of keeping air travel safe?
That's the big question, isn't it? The answers from Ahmedabad will echo for a long time.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into a truly devastating event.